Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of CoachesCorner.health. I am one of your hosts, Leslie Godet. And let me just stop my phone from chirping in here. I am a mindset and emotional awareness coach for mission-driven women who want to make a bigger impact in their world by pursuing their passion project or exploring stepping into entrepreneurship. And I show them that they can have both. They don't have to choose. They can still love what they're doing, add more value, and still keep doing all of this when it's possible to get things done efficiently, timely, and have time for fun and loved ones. And so, Andy, it's over to you.
Beautiful. I love that. I'm Andy Lidstone. I am the unconditional coach. I help people learn boundaries. I help people learn boundaries that don't separate from them from those they care about. I help boundaries that help people connect, stay connected, and reconnect.
Yes.
Um, that's been my passion for a couple of years now, 2 or 3 years now, and it's actually been secretly my passion for most of my life. I just didn't know what to call it until recently. So I'm loving it. This is a great conversation. I cannot wait.
Yeah, well, I this is something that used to follow me around a lot, so I kind of get it, with fear and self-sabotage. I would sabotage myself a lot. So I can really, really relate to this topic. And I thought it
Yeah.
would be just nice to be able to close out my time in creating the topics
Yes.
and just finish it off because I truly believe that there's a lot of things that go with fear, and self-sabotage I think is probably one of the biggest ones for me, just because um, it means I'm afraid to do something, to make a decision, or to even take action, and I'll
Yeah.
find other ways to distract myself, things
Yeah.
like watching Netflix or just whatever it is. I can do anything else, scroll social media. I don't care,
Yeah.
whatever it is, it's to get me away. And that's really, I think, part of it is um, just for that instant gratification to make you feel good. And it's usually because you're onto something, but you're unsure of how it's going to turn out or if it's going to work
Right.
out. And that's
Right.
been my case. And I think part of it also is because of the perfectionist and the control freak all wrapped into one package
Yeah.
that I didn't allow myself to step through it for so long.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what it's
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Did you know that you were sabotaging yourself?
Not really. I
Right.
think it's because all I saw was that I was making myself feel better by getting away from the thing that I didn't want to face. I didn't want to have to deal with it right now. I just felt like
Right.
if I could just distract myself enough that it wouldn't it just would go away. Thing
Right.
is, those things that we know we want to do, or the things that we know we have to do or need to do because it's part of the journey of life, um, they come back anyway. They come back to
Yeah.
tell us, "Hey, are you ready?" So,
Yeah.
all I was doing was just, I was just waylaying it for a minute. I was just, um, holding it off for just, a little bit of time, but it was gonna come back. And sometimes it came back even with a vengeance.
Yeah. Yeah. I asked that question because recently, in the last couple of years since I've been on this coaching journey, I've started to recognize when I am sabotaging, when I am self-sabotaging. But before that, I didn't even know what that was. So for most of my life, when people would say things like "stop self-sabotaging," I'm like, I'm not. Like, who would sabotage themselves? Like, who would choose to do that? And and I didn't realize what that even meant until recently. So I want to offer up what that looks like to somebody who doesn't know that they're doing that to themselves. It's simple, really. You want something that you're not getting. Whether it's you want something from your relationship, from your job, from yourself, from your hobbies, from your family. Maybe it's something you want from somebody else that you're not getting. Maybe it's something that you want from yourself. Most likely, it's something that you want from yourself, or at least that has to do with actions you want to take. Self sabotage is those things that prevent us from doing that right now. We may get to doing it someday later, So for me, self sabotage looked a lot like procrastination. Like you said, scrolling social media, watching Netflix, playing video games, that sort of stuff. But I didn't know what that meant. I just meant that I just thought, like you said, I just thought, well, this makes me feel better than that other thing over there that I know I want to do, but I really don't want to do because I don't know how it's going to work out. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know if anybody's going to care. Like, it doesn't seem like it's going to make a difference. For me, video games are a controlled environment where I know the variables, and I know that I can learn the strategies to manipulate those variables because there's a limited number of variables. In the real world, there's a much bigger number of variables, most of which I don't even know what they are. Therefore, I'm scared to try and manipulate things without knowing all the facts, without knowing all the variables. I'm scared to try and make things happen when I don't know all of the possibilities. So for me, self sabotage looks like I don't know enough yet, or I don't want to hurt somebody, or I don't want to try without having some idea of how it's going to turn out. And for me, that's what self sabotage looked like, and I didn't know what that was for most of my life. For me, what it felt like to me then was I, I I'm not prepared. I don't know enough. I'm not ready. And because I wasn't ready, I had two options: learn more or wait until I knew more. And the learning more, I think I thought I'd already done enough learning. I couldn't figure out where else to learn, so I spent a lot of time asking people where else to learn. And until I got answers, I would waste my time until I could find more answers. Right. So I wanted to start out with what is self sabotage, and do we even know we do it? Most of the time, we don't until we get into this work.
Well, I loved what you said too about not knowing how everything's going to turn out, and that's kind of like not having the control over it. I
Yeah.
think it's one of the scariest things when you don't have control. Picture yourself as an example. Um, I'll give you an example. This is a road rage incident I had, but I didn't realize that this person would be as upset as they were for me to come into traffic that was at a standstill. And so his way of taking back control over that was to come around me and sideswipe my vehicle, like literally. Now, I chased him down. I should not have,
Right.
but I did. I wanted to get a picture of his vehicle, a picture of his license plate so that I could report him. And
Right.
I ended up doing that, and of course, there was a long story short, it did get reported and all of that happened, but I think for me was I didn't have control. So when I felt that loss of control, it was so scary. That's just an
Right.
incident that it's unrelated to really what we're talking about, but it's related in enough that you know what it feels like to fear not being in control of a situation. And so I think for me, I've told you this before, I've shared with you outside of this conversation that for the first 2 years of my coaching, I struggled tremendously because I was chasing after so many different things and thinking that I was on the right track by saying yes to everything. And I lost control of my own schedule because I was overwhelming myself. And then I
Right.
started losing control over even what I was doing. Like I didn't really understand what I was doing to the point where I felt that my coaching business would no longer be in the control of how I wanted it to because
Yeah.
I was listening to all of these people out there. I felt like they had control over how I was supposed to run my business until one day, and we've talked about this, we both decided, even in your business, I'm going to do things my way. And it's
Yep.
going to be unique to me in how I
Mhm.
serve other people. And when I took back that, it felt like it was like a weight was lifted. But again, that whole fear around it, I was doing a lot of things sabotaging. So when things didn't work out, I would find something else for instant gratification. Again, going to Netflix. I love Netflix. So I'd get on there and I'd binge a season of something.
Yep.
And that's just because it made me feel instantly better because I was escaping. And I think it was part of escape
Yeah.
from the reality of what was happening that I
Yeah.
had no control over. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, that's for me. that part also resonated.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what it was for me too. Is I would go to Netflix when I wanted some version of people interaction, when I wanted to hear voices and see life being lived, but I didn't understand or believe in the ability to connect with real people. Right? I didn't know that I had the option of just phoning somebody up or texting somebody and saying, can we call?" I didn't feel like I had that option because I didn't want them to say no. If I call up Netflix, they can't say no, right? And for me with video games, it was the other. I wanted to do a thing that I could predict the results for. I wa- even though a lot of the times, I would not get the results I was looking for, I could see why. In video games, I could predict what the mistake was that I made, or at least I could learn the mistakes. I felt far less capable of learning those mistakes in real life. So when I wanted to do something that I could predict the results for, I'd go to video games. When I wanted to people interaction, but without real people, I would go to Netflix. You know, um, when I wanted to learn something but not really have it useful in my life, I'd go to YouTube. Right? I'd learn about video games, or I'd learn about, philosophical stuff, or things that, scientific stuff that has nothing to do with what I'm actually doing. Um, I'd learn things, but it wouldn't be at all relevant to what I'm doing with my life. So it depended on what the craving was that I had, that I knew I wanted to fill in my real life, but I was scared to do so. I would sabotage myself from doing so in my real life. And one of my journeys has been to realize that, to understand what it was I was actually looking for, and go look for that in real life. And accept that sometimes I don't want to. Sometimes I don't want the real life version. Sometimes I like the self-sabotaging version. Because now that I know what that feels like, now I call that, it feels much more like self-care, because I'm allowing myself to escape. Because sometimes I want to. And that's okay. When we're doing it intentionally, on purpose, knowing what the result's going to be, that's a different thing than I'm never getting what I want. It's self-sabotage when you want something and you don't know why you're not getting it. Right? So how does fear feed into that for you?
Oh, so I think part of that is when I don't, like, if I'm not achieving a specific goal I'm trying to achieve, and I don't see things moving forward, I don't see any traction. Or, as an example, it's a little noisy here. I've got a lot of motorcycles going by today. Um, I find that what I would be doing is fear would um, make me start believing that it wasn't going to happen. So if I had something I was trying to do, but I wasn't seeing traction, I would start looking inward, like thinking, well, what's wrong with me? That's what fear would start doing. It would turn the camera or the mirror back on me, or the reflection back on me, and as if to say, okay, well, it's you. What are you start asking, well, what am I doing wrong? Like, you start making everything you do, every move you make, wrong. Everything about your life, what you accomplished all the way up to that point, wrong. Because you think, well, I'm failing. I'm not doing what's right because it's not working for me. But it, again, is like you had said a little while ago, is that we learn, and and when we're ready, when we really feel like, we'll pull the trigger, like we'll pull the trigger, and we know that not all the time it's going to land somewhere, but we keep at it enough. But when self-doubt or fears, when we start to feel like we want to procrastinate, when we're worried or anxious or stressed about what's happening, I find, for me especially, that I'll look at what I'm doing and start with a micro mini, like a mini microscope or whatever, and start really picking everything apart, and then
Mhm.
start looking at things as if, well, this is wrong and that is wrong, and that's the reason why this isn't happening is because of this X, Y, and Z, and there's all these people out there that are already filling this they're already meeting this need. So there's no reason for you to be out there in the marketplace. I mean, a whole slew of thoughts could go through your head. And that's why, one of the things why I truly believe in coaching, why I've gotten coached by some powerful coaches and gotten a lot of great tools that I can use for myself when I go down that rabbit hole. And why I believe that when I work with my own clients, if they go through this, that I give them access to me through, like, I use WhatsApp. Sometimes they like Boxer, or even using Facebook Messenger to DM me, whatever we decide within our contract, so that they have like access to me Monday through Friday before our calls while they're going doing the work. That,
Right.
life doesn't just stop. Like, oh, we're gonna wait till your call. It doesn't just stop. So I give them
Right.
access to me so that they can get that coaching, because I know what that feels like to be on the other end of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That was my experience as well. It's for me, it wasn't so much about, um, it wasn't so much about not being good enough, or doing it wrong. It was nobody's going to care. I wanted to do something that made a difference in the world. I wanted to help people. I really have always wanted to help people. And when I go out to help somebody and nobody's listening, it feels pointless, purposeless. It feels irrelevant. And my biggest fear is being irrelevant, like not mattering at all to anybody. So for me, procrastination, for me, self sabotage looked like, um, I'm not going to do this because nobody's going to care anyway. Like it doesn't matter. Nobody cares. And if nobody cares, then my fear, the fear is that it wouldn't matter. My fear is that it wouldn't make a difference. That nobody would notice. It wouldn't matter if I did it right or if I did it wrong. Nobody's going to notice. Um, and that comes from, as a child, me wanting to be the center of attention, and my family intentionally not giving me attention because they didn't want to feed my craving to be the center of attention. They didn't want to feed my narcissistic personality types, although they didn't call it back then. That's what we call it now. That personality. And I wasn't. I was looking for attention. I was craving attention. I was looking for not to be the center of attention, not to be the only one in the spotlight. What I wanted to do was to have the spotlight so I could bring my brother and my sister into it with me. I wanted to bring my friends into it with me. I wanted to shine the spotlight on the things that I found, the people I found important. Um, and I didn't. And what I found was I was told not to be in this, that I wasn't allowed to be in the spotlight. So for me, the fear is related to not mattering, to not giving, not making a difference, like nobody caring. Because what I want to do is shine the light on the things that are important to me, because I think they're important to a lot of people, and most of the people who for whom that these things are important aren't getting the notice. And I want to give them that notice. I want to give people that microphone to say what they need to say what they want to say. I want to have the platform. That's what I want to do. I want to create the platform that people can say what they want to say, including me. So that was my fear, is that it's not going to matter. Nobody's going to care. It's not going to make a difference. Why bother? And if it doesn't matter, then just go play video games. I mean, nobody's going to care anyways. And nobody cares about you playing video games. So, and nobody cares about your Netflix. So at least there, you're not doing those things to get attention, right?
Yeah. Wow. So, yeah, I think I learned something about you today, in how you want to help, and the reason, one of your why for helping people. I think it is important to shine the light on, really important issues. And one of those is around, especially what you teach around, what you coach around, is in the boundaries. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, I never realized that that could also cause you to feel not to speak up,
Right.
because even if you did, what you had to say wasn't important enough to
Yeah.
even listen to.
Right.
And yet, we both know this is a topic, a subject that has gotten a lot of attention. And
Yeah.
a lot of people do talk about it. They actually use boundaries, but they actually use barriers, believing they're boundaries. And I mean, we can go all into that, but I mean, we understand that. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think, yeah, sabotage, self-sabotage is such a silent, like, it's one of I call them, I have 8 silent sisters, and that's one of them. That's why I
Yeah.
wanted to talk about it. And I think self-sabotage really is something that we don't know we're doing, because we know we're doing something, we just don't realize, like you said, that it's we're sabotaging ourselves. And that can
Right.
even go in relationships too. Like, oh, this
Yeah.
relationship is too good, so I got to do something to mess it up. And you
Right.
do something to mess it up, not necessarily like you're setting, oh, saying, I'm waking up this morning and I'm going to go do something to mess it up. But you don't trust the relationship the way it is because you've never experienced a loving relationship. So instead of just going with it, embracing it, and enjoying each moment of each day, you find a way to sabotage the relationship. Well, you're not doing enough, or you're not paying enough attention to me. You don't listen to me. You don't hear me. You don't understand what I'm saying. Picking fights for no reason,
Yeah.
over the silliest things, because for you, having something so good, it could also lead, maybe even to not feeling like you're worthy of it. So
Right.
that's part of why you would sabotage yourself.
Yeah.
The worth scale, people, I used to do this, putting myself in I had a value scale for self-worth. I felt I was only as worthy and deserving of something as long as I gave more than what I received, not believing that I could get equal for giving equal. I believe
Yeah.
that if I gave love, it had to be way more. I had to give way more of myself than the other person. Even my coaching, I felt like my coaching services, when I started first pricing it, I believed that, oh, if the person balked at my prices, and I had to like immediately retreat and say, well, for you, believing that I had to, um, to dilute it by the pricing, and making it much lower than what I perceived that I should be charging. And it's not based on the value of myself that I'm charging the price that I'm basing it on the value of the transformation that this person is seeking. But in the
Right.
beginning, I just felt like, yeah, no, I can't ask for that because I'm not worthy of that. I'm not deserving of that. Only people who are privileged are worthy and deserving of that. I even had
Right.
that conversation with someone recently. I've known him since I was 11 years old. Wow.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
a long time. That's like 47 years. No, 48 years. 48 years I've known this person. Yes, so I'm dating myself. Okay. But I've known this person for a long time. And we started talking about our childhood and how we grew up. And I remember not feeling good enough. Like, I felt like an outsider with even
Right.
my friends. I was popular in school. I had a lot of friends because I was always outgoing and friendly, and wanting to get involved. But I felt even then that I was just allowed to be an observer. I wasn't allowed to really have what those people had. And so for me, as I got older and I got into the workforce, the way I sabotaged myself was money. It came to money. It was not being responsible with my money, not being responsible with credit. I
Right.
sabotaged myself, like not saving, spending my money and maxing out my credit cards, thinking, "Oh, I'll spend just this much and I'll pay it back at the end of the month." But then the end of the month would come, and you end up paying like the minimum balance, but you've got this high price because you keep saying, "Oh, I'll take care of that then." But I sabotaged myself because it made me feel better because I didn't feel good enough about myself. I'd go and do retail therapy, spend what I didn't have. It was always on credit, max out the cards, and then feel bad about myself because I did that to
Yeah.
myself. I did that. And so I sabotaged really financial freedom for myself by doing these things because I had a value scale on my worth.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And like I said earlier, and we both said that we don't know that we're sabotaging ourselves, so we don't call it sabotage when we're in the middle of doing it. What I would do is I would say, Like you said at the start, you said you were talking about relationships. I'm not worth the relationship. I'm not good enough to be in this good of a relationship. How could she fall in love with me? She's far better than I am. And this is one way that you can tell that you're self-sabotaging yourself when you think your partner is worth more than you. When you've put your partner up on a pedestal, when you'd feel unworthy of being in the relationship, when you feel like, how could they choose me? How do I deserve this person? How can I possibly be good enough for this person? That's a version of self-sabotage. Because you're although that thought isn't sabotaging yourself, that thought creates the self-sabotage. That thought, when you say, how do I deserve this person, what the kinds of actions that we do in those situations are things like asking them why they chose me. I asked my wife probably every couple of months for a string of about a week. I would ask her like 3 4 times a day, why did you choose me? And I don't get it. And like, explain it to me. I did that to my girlfriend that I dated after my wife left. Um, I never felt worthy. So when you don't feel worthy of your job, of your relationship, of your spot in life, of whatever it is you're doing, when we don't feel like we deserve what we have, we will sabotage that. We won't do it on purpose. It's not, like you said, it's not going to be something I wake up in the morning and think, oh, I don't deserve this, I better sabotage it. But I promise you, when you wake up in the morning, a secret part of your brain that doesn't talk to the rest of you does that. A part of your brain that doesn't let you know that it exists does do that. And that's where self sabotage comes in. We don't call it self sabotage, we don't recognize it as self sabotage. But how you can know that it's self sabotage is you recognize that the consequences you're feeling, the results you're feeling, the experiences you're having are at least partially your fault. You racked up your credit cards. I feel bad. I feel horrible. I felt horrible for racking up my credit cards. I know I did that. I don't know why I did that. And the answer to why is self sabotage. I'm getting something I don't believe I deserve. I might not know what it is that I'm getting that I don't believe I deserve, but I do believe I'm getting something I don't believe I deserve. And therefore, I'm doing something to wreck that thing. Not on purpose, but part of me is. A secret part of me is. So that's how we know we're self-sabotaging. For me, it came around, as I said, it came around not believing anybody cares. So when I started getting attention, when I started getting noticed, for example, after my wife left and I decided if I wanted to become a writer, I joined a writers group and I took some of my articles there. After a little while, I was writing articles and I took some of my articles there. For the first little while, I just kind of showed up and helped critique other people's stories and gave my opinions and, secretly hid in the background and really didn't get any notice. And then when I started bringing my stories there or my articles there, they were not so much fictional, they were self-help related. And I got a lot of notice. And people didn't know how to take themselves out of the content long enough to actually critique the writing. I couldn't get a lot of feedback on the grammar and punctuation and structure of the writing because the content was too powerful for them to pull themselves out of the content long enough to do that. So that made me feel pretty damn good. I'm writing well enough that they can get the point, and they can get the point enough that they can't critique the writing. That felt pretty good. And then I just wouldn't bring another article for like 3 months because it felt too damn good. I couldn't be this good. I just can't. I need to go back into the line or back into the shadows and back off the stage and down into the into the secret parts so that people didn't notice me and didn't see me again for a while. And it probably took a half dozen articles over the course of a year before I started to realize, wait a minute, they do actually, admire me. They do actually respect me and notice me and want me there. When I'm saying things about other people's writing, they're listening, they're paying attention, they want my opinion. They're even asking for my opinion. And that's when I started to realize that what I had been doing was sabotaging myself. Was I realized that, wait a minute, the results that I'm feeling are partly my fault. And that's when I started to realize that. And when I started to realize that, I was able to change some of it. I was able to begin the journey of changing that. Right. So it's the things that we do to not shine a light on what could possibly be our good qualities, or maybe and especially our best qualities. We might not think they're our good qualities or our best qualities, but we're scared they might be, and we don't want somebody to see what we think could be our good qualities and then call them not good. So we want to specifically take the light off of those qualities, off those things that we do. I don't want to shine the lights on the things that I think that I'm hope that people recognize me being good for. I don't want to shine the light on those things on the chance that they don't think I'm good for those things. Right? I think I'm good for those. I mean, I don't want to be noticed for them.
Yeah, and I think also to add to that is the look for your it could be a fear of not only do I not want to shine the things on the things that I'm good at, because that then might open them up to start digging to find the things that I'm not good at to bring to light and start questioning me about it and maybe bombarding me with, and that could happen. I mean, it's not necessarily that it did happen to you, but
Right.
there's always that fear of like, okay, well, you're good at this. But as an example, I'll give you an example. I had a live video I did on Facebook quite a few months ago. I went live on my profile and I talked about women and being labeled emotional, because unfortunately that is it is a character trait that a lot of women sometimes get labeled as emotional.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't think there's a problem with being emotional as long as you don't live in your emotions. Being overly emotional all the time, obviously, that doesn't serve you. But it must have hit a nerve for this guy because he was starting to comment in the comments like really negative things.
Hmm.
And I realized for the first time that I had been, marked by a troll. They call them trolls on Facebook. And I thought, okay, well, what I ended up doing was at that time, I felt very insecure around it. So I
Hmm.
blocked it. I blocked the post and I blocked him. And of course, I mean, I'm not saying that that was a bad thing that I blocked him. And I'm not saying it was a good thing that I blocked him. At the
Right.
time, that's what I did to make myself feel safe.
Yeah.
But yeah, having someone shine the light on you about something that you're sharing can be scary either way, whether it's positive or negative.
Right.
Someone not maybe not getting it or not understanding what you're trying to say at first. I think what happens, unfortunately, my husband, he's sleeping right now, but yeah, he understands this. It's a it's when someone is listening to respond. It's the same thing, I think. Almost like someone's watching a video and instead of like really just taking the time to learn from the person, see if they can learn from that person whatever it is they're sharing, and then make their own, opinion about it, whatever they decide. They're already thinking, "Oh, I don't agree with that. I don't like that," and they're not getting the whole picture because when you're already thinking to respond, or if you're talking in a conversation and you're already thinking to respond, you find yourself missing half of the conversation because
Yes.
you probably find yourself missing that one key element, which actually then will like change the trajectory of your thought.
Yeah.
But that's what happens. So I think to protect, that's how it wasn't necessarily self-sabotage, but it again makes you get back into those negative thought patterns where you start, disappearing a little bit, like you said. Like, I don't
Yeah.
want to do this anymore because somebody showed up and started being negative. And then I started realizing that's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. I mean, everyone has an opinion. Do,
Yeah.
does someone's opinion have the ability to make or break me? It could if I let it, but I'm not. I have the power to decide that, And so
Yes.
I know that, and we know that, we because we've done the work. But I think for people out there who don't really have a full understanding of self-development, or they're in their self-development journey, but because they're not in the coaching world, and trying, or and honing their skills so they can help other people, they might fall back on some of those things that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And that's when fear will like to double down on our, and we'll sabotage ourselves in ways we don't even think. Like when we get back to relationships, one of the things that I know, a guy that I knew, he was a pretty good looking guy. I used to work out with him at the gym in Florida when we were living there. There was 5 of us, and he would talk to me about his relationship, and she was always questioning him, making sure he wasn't cheating on her,
Right.
and he wasn't.
Right.
But then all of a sudden he was. And his reasoning was, well, she's already accusing me of something. She's accusing me of something that I wasn't doing, so I might as well do it.
Right.
So, but what she was doing was sabotaging the relationship, because obviously she must have come from relationships where men cheated, and he's deciding, well, I'm going to sabotage this relationship, not even realizing he's sabotaging the relationship by cheating,
Right.
and then having 2 girlfriends at the same time. And so it, and then trying to figure out why he's like all over the place and not feeling good about himself and questioning what he's doing.
Right.
And so that's what sabotage does. It doesn't even tell you that you're sabotaging. You'll make right doing something else to get away from something, because of whatever your fears are, whether you're afraid of maybe not nobody giving a crap about what you have to say, or maybe afraid of being seen, and you don't want
Yeah.
people to see you. You don't want people to judge you. So you're afraid to even, like, again, me blocking that guy. He
Yeah.
had a right to his opinion. And who's to
Yeah.
say that somebody didn't chime in later and would have like put down like, hey, you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
But that's what I was saying. It's like the sabotage, we don't even know we're doing it, just because it's in response to some kind of stimulant, whether it's someone telling you like, why are where were you, can I and wants to look at your phone to see who you're talking to.
Yeah.
They're sabotaging the relationship without even realizing they're sabotaging the relationship, because they don't trust.
Yeah.
You're going to you have the opportunity as the male or the woman to decide, am I going to let that person, am I going to let myself fall prey to that and allow myself to go out and do the thing I'm being accused of, or am I going to actually decide I'm going to help my partner feel more confident in our relationship so that this kind of behavior stops.
Right.
That's where, I mean, and nobody knows to do that, because
Right.
automatically it's like, well, we don't belong together. They break up and they go their own separate ways, and the pattern repeats itself through a different
That's right.
relationship.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. The pattern repeats itself through a different relationship. Um, and I want to just for a second, I'll go back to the relationship conversation in a second, but I just wanted to, for a second, to say that this happens at jobs too. You quit a job because of a horrible boss or horrible coworkers. You're going to go to another job that has horrible bosses and horrible coworkers, because the problem isn't them. And even when the problem is them, you've attracted that somehow. And so until you work out the thing that is causing that problem, you're not going to get into a situation that doesn't cause that problem. And the best way to work out what's causing that problem is to stay in the problem first, work it out so that it's not a problem, and then change jobs or change relationships. Right. Um, and yeah, we do sabotage those relationships. We do get into those relationships and wonder what my partner's doing. When my wife would go out with the girls, well, I've been out of the bar when women are out with the girls and they're not just dancing amongst themselves. Sometimes they do that for the first few songs while they're sober. But as soon as they're not sober anymore, the guys are coming in and they want that. They like the attention. And at a certain level, I don't have a problem with that. I didn't have a problem with my wife doing that at a certain level. But when it gets to it past that level, and I didn't know if it did with her and her friends, right? I didn't know if it would go past that level. So I would sabotage it. I would get all needy and not trusting her when she was getting ready to go out. I would get all jealous and mad and insecure when she was putting on her makeup and putting on her clothes and getting all ready to go out. And I wanted her to go out and have fun with her friends. I just wanted her to do it without including the other guys, right? And so I would sabotage it. I would make it so that she needed to get away from me, needed to get away from my clinginess, my insecurities. She needed some time away. So the more she went out, the more insecure I became. And the more insecure I became, the more she needed to go out. So, yeah, that's what self sabotage looks like. It's now, I don't know if she ever cheated on me, but that's not the point, right? I don't have any evidence. What the point is I made it mean something. I chose to make it mean something. I chose to make it mean that she was going out and hitting on the guys, whether she was or not. I was never out there. I never followed her out there. We had kids at home. I couldn't just leave them at home and go to the bar and find out what she was doing. And I didn't trust any of my friends or her friends to be on my side because, again, I didn't feel like I deserved any of that. So I didn't trust anybody to tell me the truth. So I didn't even ask anybody to check on her because I didn't trust them to tell me the truth, even if they did. So that's me self-sabotaging my relationship. But I wouldn't at the time have called it self-sabotage. I would have called it trying to protect my marriage. I would have called it trying to stay safe. And that's often where self-sabotage comes from, trying to stay safe. Um, and also, she also accused me of cheating on her an awful lot. Like she accused me of it a lot, multiple times a day, almost every day for our entire marriage. There was very rarely a day that it didn't bring up, that she didn't bring it up. So after a while, I thought to myself, if she's going to accuse me of it, should I? And I even entertained the thought a few times with a couple of different coworkers that I had. I entertained the thought, and I entertained the thought so much that I let it bleed into my fantasy world. I started fantasizing about these girls. I never did pursue anything with them because, again, I was unworthy. So even if I did, they wouldn't notice anyway. Um, the point is, though, that she thought I was, and actually, the girl I ended up dating a year and a half after she left was one of those girls. But it was a year and a half after she left. Like we didn't even develop a relationship until after she left. So, but she still to this day accuses me of cheating on her with that girl while we were married. So it's still, that self-sabotage, the insecurities that we have, the fears that we have, the lack of trust that we have. That's what causes the damage in our relationships. So until we can deal with our side of that, whether or not your partner is cheating on you or not isn't the point. Whether or not they're being loyal to you or not isn't the point. You might have walked in and witnessed it. That's still not the point. If you don't deal with your assumptions, with your thoughts, with your feelings, if you don't deal with how you feel about it, you're going to go into more relationships where that happens. And the best way to deal with your thoughts and your feelings about it is in that relationship, in that job, in that situation. When they can do what they're doing and their life doesn't change, and you can deal with that and you can understand that and you can accept that, not like it. I'm not suggesting that you think it's a good thing, but I'm suggesting that if we can learn to deal with our emotions in the situation, we will, when we change situations, stop attracting those. If I can deal with my emotions, my insecurities while I was in my relationship with my wife, I could have gotten into another relationship where I didn't have those insecurities. That's not what happened, but I could have had I done so in that relationship. In the girlfriend I ended up dating, I did manage to deal with my insecurities in that relationship. So the next relationship I get into will have a different flavor. And that's part of the reason why I haven't been in one, because I don't know what they look like anymore. because my perspective of relationships has changed. So I don't know how to attract a girl like that. So, and at this point, I'm going to work on something different until I learn how to do that. So that's what self sabotage looks like. It looks like insecurity. It looks like fear of them doing something. It looks like fear of a consequence that feels like it comes from somebody else, but we're causing it, and we don't know we're causing it. Right? It feels like I'm not enough. It feels like they're not going to pay attention. They don't care about me, or they hate me. It feels like all of those negative emotions. That's what self sabotage feels like.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So it's isn't it like it's crazy when you think about the things that we do that we're not even really consciously aware that we're doing it.
Right.
We do things mostly, I think, we're protecting ourselves, or so we think.
Yes.
We're doing things to protect our integrity, to protect our heart. You know,
Yeah.
love is a huge thing, and it's hard if you give of yourself and somebody breaks your heart. But part of that also is just being okay. I think one of the things that I think would be really great is if people in relationships could just take it day by day whenever they get into a relationship, instead of like planning it out. Like, where do you see us in 5 years, having children and a house? I mean, like, you can have that conversation, a couple times. But one of the things I did as I worked with a woman around her relationship, and I said to her, her normal pattern was get into a relationship, start having feelings, believing it's going somewhere, then start mapping it out. Like, where is this going? Start asking the questions, start putting the
Right.
pressure that he's the one, believing they're going to get married instead. And so I said, listen, you need to put the brakes on it. I know you might be in love with this person, but what would be best serving to both of you would be to be in your relationship just in the present day. Don't think about yesterday, and don't think about tomorrow. Just enjoy today. Because if you put so much pressure on a relationship, that's again where the sabotage comes in, because you start putting that pressure, and maybe the person isn't right for you, or maybe the person's just not ready to answer those questions yet. But when you start asking those questions, like, where are we going with this, are we going to get married, I'm looking, if you have to have these conversations, yes, but it can't become the sole focus of your relationship, where then you start turning to ways to sabotage it by looking and picking and pulling apart what the person's things are. I have two younger brothers. I have an older brother as well, but my two younger brothers, extremely jealous. They were when they were younger. I don't know how. I know my one brother. He's been married like longer than I have. My brother,
Hmm.
who's 2 years younger than I, he and his wife have been married a little bit longer than I have. And then the youngest, he was married a few years ago, and it's been a long time. They've been divorced quite a few years. But the jealousy with him, especially the youngest, I remember going out with one of his girlfriends at the time. We had gone to see Prince in concert,
Hmm.
and his
Now I'm jealous.
first his first thing was, make sure you tell me if she talks to anybody. And I said, talks to who? What do you mean? She's going to talk to me? He goes, no, you know what I mean. I go, really? You are that insecure? You think that your girlfriend is going to go out with your sister to pick up guys? Like, really? So, anyhow, and I was already in a committed relationship, so it was quite comical. But I've never really had that jealousy for myself,
Right.
but I guess it comes from the insecurity of not feeling like you're good enough to have that person. And maybe
Right.
that's how he felt, like he didn't really deserve her, so he was wanting to protect his claim on her so that no one else could get her. No one else better than him could take her away. I think
Right.
that was part of it. But he would also sabotage that in his own way with her. The way, who did you talk to? Let me see your phone. Those types of things. And all that does is just, to me, I would think if someone did that to me, it was just like, I'm out of here. Because I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but if you don't trust me, that's the one thing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm very loyal and I would never do that. But if I can't even show you, I can't even prove to you just by my words that I'm loyal to you, obviously this isn't going to work. And
Right.
that's what happens is people break up instead of like working through their insecurities, because they could have actually had a really good person in their life
Yeah.
and they didn't know it because got in their own way.
Yeah. Yeah. To that point, exactly. That feeds exactly what I was saying. If you are insecure, you're the jealous type, and you are. I mean, when you're jealous, you're jealous. If you are someone who's jealous of your partner getting attention from somebody else, you are only capable of attracting those people who will give attention to somebody else. Because if you happen to get into a relationship with a lady like Leslie, who is very loyal, and you don't trust her, she's out of there. She's gone. You won't be able to attract women like that. You won't be able to attract men like that. They won't stick around. If you don't trust them, they won't stick around. They won't tolerate it. So the only way you can attract somebody who's loyal is by trusting their loyalty, even when there's evidence that they're not loyal. The only way you can be in a relationship. So you saying that was exactly evidence to what I was talking about a minute ago, what you're talking about a second ago. I'm not going to stick around. If I'm loyal, if I'm not going to cheat on you, I'm not going to stick around. If you don't trust me, I'm out of here. I'm going to go find somebody that will. Right? I'm not going to stick around. So that's what I got into with my second relationship sorry, not my second relationship, with my relationship after my wife, is I trusted her. She could do whatever she wanted. Go to weddings and go out to the bar and go out with her friends, and I wouldn't care. Because although she might be doing those things that I was scared my wife was doing, I trusted her. I chose to trust her. Not because I had evidence that I could trust her. I mean, I did, but that's not why I chose to trust her. I chose to trust her because I wanted to trust her, because trusting her gave me a better relationship. Not because I had evidence of it. Because whatever evidence you look for, you'll find. I mean, I'm sure I could have found evidence that she was cheating on me if I would looked for it, but I didn't want to, so I didn't find it. So that is how you get into the relationships um, that you're looking for. You get into the relationship you're looking for by being the person who qualifies for those relationships. Self sabotage looks like not allowing those relationships, not trusting those qualities. And whether it's cheating, or whether maybe cheating isn't your thing, maybe you just don't believe your partner loves you. Well, if you don't believe your partner loves you, you're never going to find a partner who can love you, because those partners who do love you, you won't believe them, and therefore they're just going to say, I'm out of here. You don't believe me when I say I love you, so I'm going to go find somebody who does. You can't attract them. So in order to have what you want, you have to believe it can happen. And if you don't believe it can happen, find a way to fix that. And it isn't your partner. Your partner can't fix it. As a matter of fact, I would even stay in a situation, I would even suggest that that short of there being physical harm, stay in a relationship where you don't feel those things, so that you can learn how to, in case the relationship you have is the one that can give it to you. Maybe it isn't, but whether it is or it isn't the point. It's learning how to fix those mindsets, those emotional problems while you're in a relationship, so that when you move on, you can get into the new relationship with a healed heart, and therefore attract the person you want. And there is the chance that the relationship you have is the one you want. The person you're with right now could very well be exactly who you're looking for. You're just not capable of being what they want, or being what you want to be in the relationship with them. So be that person first, then decide if it's time to move on.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's like it's knowing that you choose that it can happen, and you decide that it will happen. And I
Mhm.
think it also part of our discussion was how our fear can get in the way of our dreams. Like
Yes.
example, starting I work, I have a job, not necessarily a job because I'm not really an employee, but I support a law firm part of my days during the week, and then I also have my coaching business. And I think um, what can happen is in the beginning, well, what happened with me in the beginning is I thought I had to choose between one or the other, and I was
Right.
figuring out ways to like I was in scarcity. I was not supposed to scarcity. I was in fear mode, thinking that if I didn't do enough to get here, I would never get over here and this coaching business would never happen for me. And so what I ended up doing was I was sabotaging my health, meaning I sat in front of this computer for like 15, 16-hour days without
Yeah.
leaving it and
Yeah.
never getting out, never going for a walk, never taking a break, and overwhelming myself and burning myself out, burning both ends of the candle. That was sabotaging myself. And when I finally realized and I said, you know what, I can do both because I'm good at both. I love doing both. And when I did that, when I finally did that, was so liberating. But it can be really scary because I was doing things to like again believed I was sabotaging my health. I was also sabotaging my relationship because I had no time for him, and we started having conversations around how we don't do anything together because I'm sitting in front of this stupid laptop all the time, and I he doesn't feel like he can even approach me. That was then.
Right.
Now it's different because I've realized that I can have a fulfilled life doing both, and I can have time. I make the time to have quality time to spend with my husband, and when we're with our friends, and I'm all in there and I'm not worried about everything else.
Right.
Worry doesn't do anything for you. That's part of what fear likes to do is it makes you worry even more about all of the things that someone is or isn't doing, or that something is happening or isn't happening. It
Right.
just enhances it. And it's like, how do we get out of that? And I truly believe that if we can find the way to just decide that, okay, like that was my old way. Even like you said, you made the choice. I'm going into this new relationship. I'm just going to trust her. Even if I know deep down inside of me, like I'm still wondering, I'm going to make that conscious decision and trust that she's going to go out. She's going to come back. Our relationship's going to be intact. She's not going to do anything to harm it. And that's
Right.
it. And you
Yeah.
decided that. But
Yeah.
that's hard. Yeah. And the most rewarding things a lot of the time are based on hard decisions because
Yes.
we don't trust easily, or we might find that we don't want to give our love easily, or we don't want to because we feel those insecurities. And it's just
Yeah.
us deciding, and again, another thing, like you said, the job, or happiness, for example, happiness in your job. Some people say they hate their job. Is it really the job that you hate, or is it that you don't like the person that you are? Therefore, when you go to a job that is demanding of you because you're not taking care of yourself, you're not doing things to make yourself feel good, you're saying that you hate your job. I mean,
Right.
there's a different way to look at it. Again, your job could be the stepping stone to something even better if you
Right.
embrace that, if you look at it that way. You know,
Right.
and it's just the mindset shift. It's a shift in perspective, and I think if
Yeah.
people could do that, it would lead to happier relationships, longer term relationships, just happiness all around.
Yeah. It would lead to, if we could shift our mind, it would lead to happiness all around. It would lead to joy and happiness in our relationships, in our jobs, in our whole lives. It would lead to what Leslie and I show you on these damn videos. I mean, we're happy here. We love it here. And this is how that happens. And quite honestly, I believe both of us are pretty much happy in most of our lives as well. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're learning both as we go, even in this relationship, how we built this channel together and it's evolved. Last year, we made the decision, based on like how I was feeling about going live more than twice a month. And so the compromise, and we allowed that for each other. And then this year we started talking, and in the beginning of the year, we realized, hey, we're good at this. And we have messages to get out there that I think are relevant to people who need to hear these things, so that, and get that out there more. Because I think if we get the decision more that, um, we get the decision out there more, it'll, or the messages out there more, it will allow people to get more perspectives, more shift shifting perspectives around a whole host of topics
Right.
that if we were only going live a couple times a month, we might not meet all of the needs of people out there. So that's kind of like why we decided to do this as we are.
Go
And of course,
go
here we
weekly.
are.
Yeah.
Here
And
we
here
are
we
at
are.
the end of the topic, and it's like, you know, we
We
could
could keep
probably
going.
we could keep going, but for the purposes of, like, really managing our time so that we're not keeping your time as well, we're gonna end today. But it's been a pleasure talking to you, Andy. I truly believe that this was probably one of my favorite topics
Yeah.
because it resonated, and I like to talk about things that resonate. I believe I show who I am. We show who we are as human beings, and we are, even though we both are in the coaching world, that we're human first and then we're coaches. And so
Yeah.
we can relate to those things that you're going through. And that's why we're sharing real life stories, real life experiences,
Yeah.
and sharing that with you.
Yeah. I agree. You learned something new about me today, which means this is us, real life living. You and I
Yeah.
have been doing calls like this, not necessarily on live and not necessarily recorded, but we've been together on calls like this for 2 years now. And to still learn stuff like that from about each other is a lot of fun. Like we're still exploring this. Yeah, we're coaches. Yeah, we've been through a lot of this stuff. We've done a lot of this personal development, but that doesn't mean there's no journey left. There's plenty of journey left. We're still working on this. We're still going. We're still human beings. I still got to learn how to shave on occasion. Um, so thank you for showing up. Thank you all of you for watching our videos. As always, if you like what you hear, I love these conversations. We both love these conversations. If you love them as much as we do, or even a half as much as we do, like the video, share it around, subscribe to our channel so that you get notifications when we go live every Friday. And we look forward to hearing from you, and seeing you on our future videos. Have
Yeah,
fun, everybody.
absolutely. Hope you have a great rest of your day and a fantastic weekend, a great week ahead, and we'll see you next Friday.
See you later.